So I want to show you what's happening in Portland. What's happening in Portland? People are rebelling against the government like they're doing in Afghanistan. I'm going to show you. This is what's happening in Portland. The cops went to evict some people, and the people pushed back. But before I show you that video, I want to show you this video. This is from Afghanistan. So after 19 years of occupation, American troops have finally been able to win the hearts and minds of the Afghans. You want to see how they've done that? You want to see how well our government does in... You know, I can't tell what they're yelling, but I'm sure it's not, hey, rejoice, the good guys are here. So we've said on the show that whatever we do to people overseas, we're eventually going to do to ourselves. So here it is. So here it goes. So Portland police attempt to serve an eviction notice during a pandemic. Residents push them back. So cops are cops. It doesn't matter if they're in Afghanistan, if they're in France, if they're in Iraq, if they're in Somalia, if they're in Brazil, if they're in Miami, or if they're in Portland. Cops are cops. And they're going to come in there and kick you out of your fucking house because they were told to, and they're good boys, and they follow orders from fascists. They follow orders from the banks. They follow orders from the oligarchy. That's who the cops are there to protect right now, the oligarchs. They're not there to protect you. And the people of that city figured it out. Now, that's a Christmas greeting I can get behind. Hey, the empire's in the backyard now, folks. So you know how we do this to other countries? We move into their country, go into their neighborhoods, throw people out of their houses. We're doing it to our own. Here it comes. 19 million more of those things are going to happen. 19 million more. And the cops are going to do it gladly. You know, during the last economic downturn, Barack Obama and Joe Biden kicked 5.1 million families out of their house while making the banks bigger. Okay? While ramping up the war in Afghanistan, ramping up the war in Yemen, ramping up the war in Syria. They kicked 5.1 million families out of their house. Joe Biden's still doing it. Can't wait to get back in the office to do it again. That's what's happening. Now it's time to really decide which side you're on. I like how they put clash with cops over Red House eviction. I like how they always call it a clash, right? It's a clash. You know, the nice cops were just trying to evict people during a pandemic in brutal fashion, fit for a dictatorship, and the people didn't appreciate that, so they just had a little clashy clash. That's all. Just a little clashy clash. Protesters are barricading a gentrified neighborhood in North Portland, hoping to repel police and prevent an eviction. I don't know if you know, this is called class warfare, folks. That's what this is. There. Allow yourselves to be evicted. Calm down. Calm down. Don't raise any objections while you are living on the streets or under a bridge or on the side of a bus terminal. Just fill out these forms. Have patience. Go through the proper channels and let's see what we can do while you're sleeping next to a bus terminal. The Red House has been foreclosed on. In September, sheriffs tried to evict the residents, a black family who's owned the house since the 1950s. The family refinanced the mortgage, but ran into issues paying it off. Protesters have been trying to prevent an eviction since. There it is, the Red House. Wow. Protesters have been fortifying barricades, preparing to repel the police. There they are. Here's the mayor. Here's the mayor. Here's the mayor. I am authorizing the Portland Police to use all lawful means to end the illegal occupation on North Mississippi Avenue and to hold those violating our community's laws accountable. Do you see who they hold accountable? Guess who does Wall Street get held accountable? No.
They get bailed out.
They get bailed out. Does the government? No. Who gets held accountable? Poor people who can't pay their mortgage. There will be no autonomous zone in Portland, he says. Hey, here's the mayor, mayor of Portland, looking to be on the right side of history. Wow, glad this guy got reelected. He's come a long way from that protester photo op, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Walking with his crowds.
Yes. Fellow Portlandians, I'm a dick and I'm not even trying to hide it. We all agree many of our nation's systems and structures are fundamentally racist and require significant reform. There's a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, an employment crisis, a mental health crisis, and an addiction crisis. And his solution is to go evict them and just to make the crisis worse. This guy's worse than Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles. Man, Eric Garcetti has to be the shittiest mayor in the whole country, huh? Tom Wheeler, hold my locally craft brewed beer. Wow. We all agree many of our nation's systems and structures are fundamentally racist and require significant reform. There's a housing crisis, healthcare crisis, education crisis, unemployment, mental health crisis, and an addiction crisis. But I'm kicking people out of their homes anyway. When people are in crisis, we make it worse. We're the United States government. He's letting you know that people are in crisis. And then at the bottom, he says, all of these crises are magnified in urban areas, including Portland. And these crises disproportionately impact. And so what are you doing to help them? This is what he's doing. He's authorizing the Portland cops to go bust their fucking heads and throw them on the street. That's what he's doing. You're evicting people from their home during a pandemic? Where do you expect them to go? And to what end? To take their home and sell it to the highest buyer to make millions off new transplants? This is just wrong. So just so you know, when he says what this is really saying, all he's saying here is we're kicking people out of their homes during a pandemic because the coronavirus made them broke. That's what he's doing. When is this? So I don't know if you saw them. They're already beating on the cops. This is how you start social unrest, Mayor Todd Wheeler. This is how you start. So now there's going to be 19 million more of those coming after December 31st. You think there's going to be more rocks flying at the cops? You think there's going to be more people kicking cop cars? Do you think there's going to be more conflict, physical violence over this? I think there is going to be. This is how you start a violent revolution. The government is doing it. The government is doing this. This is how you start it. You know how you stop a revolution? You know how you know, they say a revolution is only 3 meals away at any given time, right? So if a guy misses 3 meals, he's ready for a revolution. That's what there's a saying. I'm sure I'm butchering it. You close people's business down, and you don't give them. There was a lengthy, thorough judicial proceeding resulting in a lawful judge's order to evict people illegally occupying a home. Mahatma County chose the time, place, and manner of the eviction, and Portland police provided support. We're throwing people in the street during a pandemic because they aren't able to pay rent because of the pandemic. That's what their government is doing for them. And here's the order. There's the order. The Kinney family filed a petition to hear their case in the Supreme Court. There it is. It's time for the encampment and occupation to end. There are many ways to protest and work toward needed reform. Illegally occupying private property, openly carrying weapons, threatening and intimidating people are not among them.
Isn't he openly threatening people?
Yes, he is. What it's time for systemic racist police brutality to end, Mayor Todd Wheeler. It's time to keep people in their homes. It's time to give people much-needed pandemic relief like every other industrialized country already has. That's what it's time for, Mayor Todd Wheeler, you fucking piece of shit.
Ted Wheeler.
Ted? Why don't people march on and occupy the city hall in Portland? That's what they should do. Occupy a city hall. Why don't they go occupy the police department? Occupy City Hall. That's what we need to do. Let's see them arrest 10,000 people. Do they have 10,000 jail cells in Portland? I'd like to see it. It's getting Mad Max out there, folks. Protests in a way I can ignore, said Ted Wheeler. That's what he's really saying. When he's telling you how you're allowed to protest in like nice good boys, what he's really saying, do it in a way that I can ignore. 19 million Americans could lose their homes when eviction limits expire December 31st, just so you know. What a rotten, miserable, despicable society we live in. 60% of all businesses close permanently. 15 million people lose their health care. 15 million. Thousands in bread lines, soup lines. That's what those are. You know, some countries such as France, Austria, and Poland prohibit evictions during winter months or when the temperature falls below freezing. Did you know that? Poland now has a conservative government which is considering a poll exit. What? You mean like Brexit? Yeah. They're going to leave the European Union. That's their conservative government. And they have a more compassionate eviction policy than we do in this country. Poland, who's going to exit the European Union, a right-wing conservative government, they have more compassion as a government than we do in the United States. We're a failed state. When you see this, that's a failed state. When you see this guy saying we're going to kick you out of your house during a pandemic, that's a failed state. We're not going to give you health care, and we're going to throw you on the fucking street. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.